Welcome to a new sort of like mini series I'm doing. This is different than other stuff I've done. I thought it would be good to make this series of videos speaking to subjects or questions that I get regularly. And a lot of this is going to be for new sailors or people just getting in to sailing or interested in cruising. This is mostly geared towards that crowd. So that's what this whole series is going to be about. And I hope you find it useful. And I hope it helps you move forward at chasing your impossible dream. Hello, friends. Oh, man. I try to not lose my voice on this final episode. I've filmed all of this in one sitting, so bear with me. This is the final episode in this mini-series, and it's called The Impossible Dream, and that's exactly it. It's trying to figure out how to make what seems like an impossible dream a reality. I always say, like, I managed to pull off my impossible dream. This episode, we're going to talk about sort of different avenues you can consider going down to make cruising a part of your life, either cruising full-time, part-time, or for a handful of years. We'll talk about different things that people do and options so that you can figure out what fits for your situation, your life, and your family. So let's get into it. Okay, one of the most common questions, which is a question I had before I started cruising, was how much does it cost? I used to get so frustrated because I could never find out even a ballpark answer to this online. And now I know it's because it's an impossible question. It's completely impossible. Because every person, every boat, every situation, it is such a wide range of possibilities that there is no sort of like, this is what it costs to go cruising. It just doesn't exist. So let's talk about different ways you can go about cruising full-time. Let's just say the most common one is, and most people do it when they retire, but the most common one is people sell their house, put their belongings in storage, and then they already have a boat that's outfitted and ready to go that they've been working on, building up to this moment. They sell everything, cash out, and sail off into the sunset to either do an extended cruise or to circumnavigate. The one downfall to that plan, the biggest downfall, is that with that plan, your money just gets less and less and less. So you have to run a really tight ship budget-wise because there's a finite amount of money. Even if you're on Social Security and stuff, it just might get less, and your savings are just going to drop because there are unexpected expenses that are going to come up. So that's kind of a really common plan with retirees. Another plan that I've seen with a lot of young people which is a pretty cool option, is if you can manage to invest in multi-unit properties in wherever you live, and you rent those out, and then you cruise on the income from those properties. Obviously, you would have it set up so that someone's managing the properties for you, but then whatever money you're making above the mortgage, then that's what you're going to be cruising on, and how you can budget your life based on what that income is. At least with that, there's like a steady flow of income happening, so that you're like, okay, well, we know that this much comes in because we have this many tenants paying this. I think that's a really cool option. I have a friend that did that. Him and his wife bought like 3 units that were really broken down like during the Great Recession. He fixed them all up himself and then rented them out, and then they went cruising based on that rental income. rental property income. So that's a really, or even your primary home. You could rent out your primary home instead of selling it, go on an extended cruise or sail around the world. And then when you're done with your cruise, or you've made it around the world and you're like, okay, I'm ready to like have some security, then you move back into your home, and you're not contending with trying to buy a new home after, sailing for so long and not having any capital to put into it. Now, if you're in a place to where it's not possible for you to sell everything or rent out your home and go sailing for a year or 2 years or 3 years, a lot of people will sell for like 3 or 4 months out of the year. They figure out a way to work it. Either you work remotely, or you have savings, you can take time off of work, or you own your own business and you can manage it that way. So, either as a solo sailor or as a couple or a family, and then they're like, okay, these 3 months or 4 months, we go to this place, which is, the cruising period in this region that we want to explore. So that's an option to where you can just cruise part-time, and then you leave the boat in a marina there, you go home, you work, you do whatever, and then when the next sailing season comes, you sail to the next region, So maybe, for example, you sail, I'm from the West Coast, so you sail from California to Mexico, you explore Baja for a season, you put the boat on the hard in Mexico, go back, you work, the next year you come back, you sail to French Polynesia, you leave the boat in Tahiti for the cyclone season, come back, sail to Fiji. You could make these hops like that and explore these gorgeous regions without totally uprooting your life. So if you can manage that sort of balance, that is a realistic possibility as well. Another thing you could do, if none of those things are an option and you have like even less time that you can commit, you can't commit 4 months to sailing out of the year, you could also charter boats around the world. Like, you could charter a boat in Raiatea, in French Polynesia, and you have access to Raiatea, the island of Taha, which are both in the same lagoon. You have an easy hop over to Huahine, which has its own lagoon, and an easy hop to Bora Bora, which also is protected behind a lagoon. So then you have all these really exotic places that you could explore by charter boat, and you don't have the expense of keeping the boat up year-round. You also don't have the expense of refitting the boat as things break. Then it gives you a chance to decide if you really enjoy cruising, whether you're solo, with a partner, or with a family. Then you can be like, yeah, this is something that we want to, eventually get our own boat and go do. I think that's a really great option for kind of dipping your toes in the water without the full commitment. And you could do the same thing in the Caribbean. I haven't sailed in the Caribbean at all, so I don't know anything. I can't speak to it. But even the Med, you could pop around every summer, cruise in a different zone, and you're basically like, sailing around the world, at least enjoying the cruising grounds around the world without doing the ocean passages, if that's all your life allows you to kind of fit in as far as like the adventure goes. Or even, like I said, to set yourself up so that once you get to a place where you're like, okay, let's do this for real, then you'll already have a taste and experience and understanding of what to expect and what you love about it, and then what you want to do a little different, and then head out for full-time cruising. Now, one thing I want to talk about when it comes to short-handed sailing, which means sailing with as a couple, is generally it's like one person gets the sailing bug and gets like really obsessed and excited, and it's their dream, and then their loving partner is supportive and is like, okay, let's follow through with this dream that you want to do, because it means a lot to you. So you need to think about your partner's comfort level and the fact that they're willing to help you achieve this dream, but it may not be their passion. Always keep them in mind in the whole scenario. So, and it doesn't have to be a man or a woman. Like, I've known plenty of female sailors who loved sailing at the helm, super stoked, and their male like boyfriend or husband was like hanging over the rails feeding Neptune. So it has nothing to do with male or female. It is more common for like dudes to get like turned on to sailing, excited, and then their wives or girlfriends are like, okay, yeah, let's make this happen. But the most important thing is to always just be aware and respectful of like what your partner needs as well. They're compromising a lot for your dream, so you need to also be aware that, you know, you might have to make some compromises also. One good option, there might be a situation where one of you is really excited about doing ocean sailing and the other one is like, that sounds terrible to me. Maybe they battle seasickness too much, which seasickness isn't, it's not a game, it's not like a full stop. So I used to get seasick every time I got on a boat. Like I threw up every time I went sailing in the beginning, and now I haven't thrown up in years. So time on the water changes that for most people, but not all people. Nowadays, the first 3 days of passage, I feel kind of crappy, and if my eyeballs feel like they're not synced up, I'll take half a pill, and I'll still feel like crap, but you know, I'll be fine. Some people never get over it, and they're always seasick. So if that's the case, or if your partner is just not interested in spending weeks on end going like 5 miles an hour across an ocean with everything flying all over the place, and if like your partner's annoying you, you can't just walk around the block or go for a drive. You're stuck with them in this very small little area. A really good option is for whomever is like the sailing addict to get like competent crew to go with them and join them, or if they're interested in solo sailing, then to go solo sailing and do the ocean passages either solo or with crew who isn't your partner. And then your partner, whether it's like your wife or your boyfriend or your family, meet you in these gorgeous locations. You guys cruise together, and then they can fly on to the next spot, or they can go home. You can do the ocean passage. They meet you in the next spot. There's different ways to go about it. But the key is like being loving and respecting to the person who isn't the one who is really passionate about, you know, sailing, because it can be a very hard life. Especially ocean sailing it can be very exhausting and not comfortable, and not fun for a lot of people. So you always have to keep that kind of like front and center and keep that in mind. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, we'll just start a sailing channel and that'll pay for all of our cruising needs, and we'll sail off into the sunset, and everything will be great. That is not... I would say that the chances of you successfully making a living off of YouTube are very, very slim. There are, I think, about 1,000 YouTube channels. So it's a pretty oversaturated market, and very few of those people are actually making a living. I'm fortunate enough that I make my entire living off of YouTube, but when I was preparing to leave Los Angeles, I invested years of experience and time, but then I invested $2,500 and took all the schooling to get my master's license with the U.S. Coast Guard, because I had no idea my YouTube channel would ever I never thought my channel would fully fund my life. So I planned on doing higher end yacht deliveries with my captain's license, or driving dive boats and tour boats in different places I went. So I left with only $1,000 cash in savings and very little money in my bank account. And I think I was making like $650 a month when I left on YouTube. I had 12,000 subscribers and like 200 videos. And I don't remember, I didn't have many patrons back then, but I had some, but not a lot. But I think my total income back then with those numbers was about $650 with Patreon and my ad revenue from YouTube. On my sail to Hawaii, I found myself adrift in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with no steering. And the film that I shot about that whole experience, once I got to Hawaii and uploaded it, it went viral because of the subject matter. And that rocketed my sailing channel career to make it possible that I could stay in Hawaii, because I couldn't have afforded to stay in Hawaii otherwise. And then it also, from, you know, I've been fully funded by YouTube since June of 2021, but really been able to have like a comfortable life living under anchor with like having simple life since then, especially since Hawaii. So right now I have almost 105,000 subscribers. And I have like almost 400 videos up on YouTube, and I average between around $3,500 a month is what I make. Now I have very minimal debt. The only debt I have is like slowly paying down the rudder repair in Hawaii, and I had to buy a new laptop for editing on. So that's the only credit card that I'm really still paying down. Other than that, I don't have any debt. I don't have any debt back home. My only monthly expenses is my Iridium Go bill and my cell phone bill. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's like my only monthly expenses. And then yearly expenses, you have boat insurance, you have health insurance, travel health insurance, stuff like that. But I mostly live under anchor. I'm almost never in marinas. Very rarely am I in marinas. So it's pretty easy to live simply once you get out there. You know, the only thing is like, if you allow yourself to eat out a lot, I don't drink alcohol, but that can add up, especially if there's two of you. That's a high expense. I allow myself to eat at restaurants when I'm near to restaurants and civilization. I allow myself to eat out whenever I want because I cook for myself all the rest of the time on the boat in remote anchorages or at sea. So I allow myself that. But again, like, I think I live on about probably between $1,500 and $2,000 a month outside of like any crazy boat expenses. Like, I had to have my engine rebuilt when I got to New Zealand. That cost me $3,200. So there's those Mondo expenses that happen. But as far as like regular monthly expenses, I think I live on about, yeah, $1,500 to $2,000 a month. I think is roughly what I spend monthly. So I encourage everyone to start a YouTube channel because I think it's a great way for you to document your memories for yourself, for your family and friends, and also for strangers who like to see these places and this life that we get to live. But just be aware that it's very difficult to sort of get a market and be able to. Don't think that that's going to be the way that you pay for this life, because you're most likely going to be very bummed that it doesn't happen. And if it does happen, then awesome. Great. But for me, I'm always ready to start working if YouTube no longer gives me, funds my life. Like, you know, it's so surreal to me that it funds my life at all, that I'm always like, okay, well, I have the ability to work on people's boats for money, to drive boats, to deliver boats. I also write articles for magazines, which helps keep the savings topped up. And I get very small amounts of money from my merch sales on YouTube, as well as like affiliate programs I'm a part of, and through self-published books. But those are like really, I always say, if you have enough crumbs, you can make a piece of bread. So all these very small revenue streams kind of add up and to keep the savings topped up. So that's the reality of like my life and like what I pay for this life. But again, there's always the possibility that you're going to have some major expense, and you kind of got to have a little nest egg for that to deal with those sort of emergencies, because they're going to come no matter what. As we sail around the world, like, a lot of abuse happens on the boat. And that's the thing is, I fully refit Tritea before I left LA. So primarily most of her gear should be good until I get back to LA after my circumnavigation. But again, had to have the engine rebuilt. That's sailing. That's the reality of it. But those are some different sort of options and possibilities to think about, ways to pay for it. Especially nowadays with like Starlink and stuff, you could work remotely. A lot of people could work remotely. And even if you just, you know, make enough to get by, I think a lot of us are willing to sacrifice luxuries for this life, to see the magic, to experience everything that we get to experience, and just make enough to get by. That being said, thank you to my patrons. I really appreciate y'all's support. You guys are fantastic. And thanks to everybody who watches the videos. Even you watching this video, you're helping fund my dream, my impossible dream. Thank you for watching the video. And I hope this series has helped you understand some things that maybe you had questions about and wasn't necessarily easy to find anywhere else online. If you enjoyed it, please tell me down in the comments, and share it. Share all these videos on Facebook or Instagram or wherever with friends, so that other people can also like gain insight into these 5 videos that I put together. It's kind of absurd. I tend to like make more work for myself than is necessary, but I just feel like I feel obligated to give back the knowledge that I have to try to help you do this. I want you to be out here sailing in the world just like I am, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you with the information that I already have either learned the hard way or learned just, you know, as I sail around the world. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this mini-series. Fair winds until next time. If you enjoy the content on this channel and would like to contribute, you can consider joining the Patreon crew. Thanks for watching. Fair winds until next time.